I'm Charles Eichenbaum, Director of Marketing Technology in Microsoft's Global Demand Center. And Microsoft's Global Demand Center is focused on creating demand for sales for many of our B2B products. So things like Office, Windows, Microsoft Azure, and other cloud enterprise products. Here's the process that we've started to apply AI to. So this is our demand creation funnel, an abbreviated version. It probably looks very similar to how you may measure your business. When you look across this, there's really two areas. The first is, how do we increase our conversion rates from MQLs to SQOs, so marketing qualified leads, to sales qualified opportunities, through the use of AI-based predictive analytics. So basically scoring these and saying, or lead scoring and saying, what's the highest probability MQLs to convert to SQOs, and giving those to sales first. And then the second, once you have an MQL, you need to send it to an inside seller. So how do we, and the inside seller spends a lot of time calling and trying to reach the right person. So how do we take some cost out of that through bots and automation? So those are the two areas which we're applying different techniques. And those techniques are three areas. One are business rules, which aren't necessarily AI, but they're business rules that we apply on top of the AI or before the AI. There's lead scoring, which is we use machine learning, and then bot engagement. And these three things either reduce costs, so business rules reduce costs because then you don't have to call invalid leads, etc. Lead scoring could increase revenue and decrease costs, and bot engagement can also increase revenue and reduce costs. And the way that looks on a graph is this. So I'll orient you on the left-hand side. You've got the leads risk adjusted lifetime profit. Or think about this as the probability of a lead to convert to a sales qualified opportunity. So what's the probability between 0 and 100% that this will turn into an opportunity for a seller? And on the bottom of the graph, you have, and on the left side, you have the leads that we process first and the leads that we process last. So the first thing we do is we apply business rules. So we get a lead, email address, phone number, name, bunch of leads, and we'll say, is this lead valid? Yep, it's got a valid email and a valid phone number, or nope, it's got an invalid email. We run these business rules pre-processing, and we're able to take out the leads that have bad email addresses, bad phone numbers, and other suppression rules. And then we'll move to taking the good leads and putting them on the graph, or the leads with the valid information. Now we move over to lead scoring. And the way that we used to do lead scoring is we would do rules-based, points-based lead scoring. So for instance, if you attended a webinar, we would give you 10 points. If you downloaded an ebook, we would give you, for example, 5 points. And then once you crossed a certain threshold, we would send you to a seller. And the actual results ended up looking something like this, which wasn't great because here you're processing leads that are negative profitability before higher profitability. So here's an example of a lead that you would want to process last, or maybe not even call. And so that rules-based scoring had a lot of limitations. Additionally, we have capacity limits. We can't call all of the leads. And so these leads on the right, you're missing out on because the seller is not calling them. And these are clearly not profitable. So we employed machine learning to drive our lead scoring. And we got a curve that looks a lot more like this. And this is great because now we're prioritizing the most valuable leads and we're avoiding processing leads that are unprofitable. But this is just a prediction. We specifically predict the probability of that lead to convert to a sales qualified opportunity. The problem is you don't always get that prediction correctly. And so that's where bots come in. So we'll use bots to ask leads, hey, are you actually interested or not? And sometimes they say, yeah, I'm interested. Definitely, please contact me. And so we'll move those up to the top of the queue. Other times, our predictions are wrong. And we'll ask this lead, are you interested or not? And they might say, no, I'm not. So instead of having a seller spend a bunch of time emailing, trying to contact them through LinkedIn and trying to call them on the phone only to get on a meeting to be told no, we can disposition those right away without a human ever having to be involved and move those to the bottom and continue to nurture them until they might be ready. So we're able to avoid working these leads and reduce sellers' costs and increase their productivity. On the flip side, our predictions could be, we could get a false negative. And in that case, we would be missing out on revenue. So we deploy the bots on the lower end of the spectrum, scoring spectrum as well. And sometimes, a lot of times, we'll find leads that say, hey, actually, I am interested. And we call these the diamonds in the rough. And we're able to move those up to the top and work these leads that will convert despite a initial prediction of will not. And then, as you see, we're able to deploy the bots kind of across the whole entire system and ultimately process more leads than we'd be able to with humans because of our cost constraints. And so we end up having a curve that looks like this, where we're processing really only the most valuable leads. Now we'll move on to how we're actually using the bots. So this is a screenshot of Conversica, and what one of the emails says, hi, John, if you recently signed up for a trial of Microsoft Azure, we're here to help you if you have any questions getting started. We have technology specialists. That's a very important thing for our customers, to be able to talk to somebody who's a technology specialist to answer questions about getting started. Would you like me to connect you with someone on our team? And this is an example of an email that we sent out to someone who was below the threshold to send to set sales. So sales never would have called this person. And the lead responded, hi, sorry for not responding earlier. Actually, we're very much into Azure. We're looking at your competition, but we'd like to keep everything inside of Azure. And so this was flagged as a hot lead, and we were able to send it to a seller. And this is super important because they were talking to our competition, and a Microsoft seller never would have reached out. But now that we've been able to automate this conversation and increase the system capacity, we were able to intervene in this and get involved in the sales cycle. So we definitely would have lost this had we not had the bots to help identify this. Here's another example, same email. The response was, thanks, I don't need support for now. I'll let you know if I need anything. This is an example of a lead that was above the threshold that had we sent it to a seller first, then they would have spent time emailing and having to disposition, and we've automated all of that. And finally, I want to run you through a recent opportunity that was found by bots. So one of our customers was acquired through Visual Studio Online, and we're sending them email nurture. And then they signed up for a Azure trial, but they were classified as low propensity based on the prediction of the model. So the MQL expired, and the bot emailed the customer. And the customer said, hey, actually, I'm interested in Dynamics 365 demo. Do you have, can I get some help here? And we were able to route this as a lead to the seller. And it's interesting because now the seller has context, right? This buyer has basically interacted with two different products, Visual Studio Online and Azure. And now they want help with understanding Dynamics. And so that context, we actually sent that context, over to the sellers, and they're able to see, oh, okay, well, I need to get someone with Dynamics 365 expertise on the phone. And that actually helps accelerate the sales cycle because they can get them on the phone right away versus determining what the customer wants and then on the first call and then having to have a second call. And this opportunity was a 350-seat deal for about $250,000. So really, really great opportunity that the bot found. So and material to the business. So an example of a diamond in the rough. And by deploying these two techniques, lead scoring and bots, we've been able to see an increase across our products of between 30 to 60% in our conversion rate from marketing qualified lead to sales qualified opportunity. So it is having a real and meaningful impact on the business. And we actually think we can get this to probably between 100 and 150% increase as we continue to optimize and over time.
Thank you, Charles. That was a really great presentation, and it generated a lot of questions from our audience, and a few things that I'd like to ask you as well. Let me just start out by maybe you could tell us a little bit about the implementation time frame. So you mentioned building the lead scoring and using machine learning and such. How long did you guys spend on that project?
Yeah, so we started a couple of years ago on it, and one of the reasons why it took so long, we just finally finished the implementation within the past 4 to 5 months. And the reason why it took so long is what I kind of alluded to earlier, is we didn't really have all of our prereqs set up. We didn't have the processes and inside sales set up correctly. We didn't have our data sets all combined together. So we spent a bunch of time getting all of those things in order, and then we were finally able to start applying the data science and AI components to it.
And what about the Conversica implementation? Can you share a bit with the audience how long that took?
Yeah, that one actually went much faster. From when we said go, it took about 6 to 8 weeks, I would say, from when we started working on it to when we first went live with our first implementation. When the customer first got their first email, and I think that's one of the advantages of buying a kind of SaaS product versus trying to build your own is it can be much faster. And then Conversica was also able to provide a lot of expertise and learnings from a lot of their other customers to help us accelerate as well.
Good point. I kind of wrote down 3 things that I captured as the key benefits around the bot piece. Let me know if I have these correct, Charles. So you already have leads that are scored high. If someone also says to the outreach from the assistant, Kristen, I believe is her name, if they say, yeah, I'd love to speak with someone, then that accelerates them even further up the queue, right?
That's correct.
The second one is that you have highly scored leads from the model. They may also respond to Kristen, but in this case, they might say, hey, I'm not interested right now. Contact me next month or later, and you're not wasting time from the sellers because you're going to move that down to the end of the queue. Is that right?
That's correct.
And then you had the third category, which you called the diamonds in the rough, which I love, great name, is the leads that were low scored, that were way down at the bottom of the queue. Someone would probably not reach out to them anyway, but when you had Kristen reach out, they said that they did want to speak with someone, they did have questions, wanted to learn more, and you move those up to the top of the queue. Did I capture that right?
Yeah, those are the 3 scenarios. So we'd say 1 and 3 really are about driving incremental revenue, and then the second one is about reducing costs and helping your sellers be more productive.
Yeah, which is a great segue to the next question, which is about how you are measuring this. So you talked just now and throughout the presentation about boosting revenue and decreasing cost. You also mentioned this notion of increasing capacity, and you showed that in your slides of just being able to do more with the human team. And how did you measure that? Did you have a sense of how long they were spending on processing a lead or contacting a lead before, and thus how much more capacity they could have after implementing these techniques?
Yeah, so I think the kind of Uber metric that we're still relatively new and prolifically rolling this out across everything, and so and sales cycles are long. So the Uber metric that we're going to look at once we have data and we've had enough time for opportunities to close on this is really going to be revenue per sales rep. And so we're trying to drive revenue per sales rep up. And the idea there is if we give them higher quality leads that convert more, the revenue goes up. And if we're giving them less bad leads, then their productivity goes up as well. Kind of in the interim, what we're looking at is the conversion rates of the leads that we send them to sales qualified opportunities. That's a big one. I'll also say that we did do some time and motion studies, and reps could spend anywhere between 30 minutes to an hour just trying to get through a lead to disposition it. And that includes trying to call the lead multiple times, custom craft an email and send an email, try to contact people through LinkedIn, and then sometimes they'll get on a meeting and the seller is like, no, I'm not really interested. I don't want to move forward with this. And so just every one of those leads that we don't have to, and then not to mention them having to go into the tools and update things and disposition things. So every one of the leads that we can take out of that process that are bad, they're going to have to go through that, just adds more time for them to be able to sell.
That makes a lot of sense, and it kind of leads to the next question that I'm summarizing from the list here, which is, how did sales receive this? What was the reaction as you rolled out the scoring and the bot interaction to sales, and how did you kind of ensure that you had sales bought in?
Yeah, so I'll talk about the process of how we rolled it out to sales and a couple of options there, and then I'll talk about how they received it. So there's kind of two schools of thought around this, and I would encourage everybody to sort of think about their organization and what will make the most sense for them. I don't think either is right or wrong, but some organizations will just roll it out and have the assistant just start providing leads to sales and not tell them it's a bot. And what I hear is that the sellers are excited to get the leads because they're typically pretty high quality. And then when they hear it's a bot, they're like, oh, that's so cool, or they're very surprised. The way that we've done it at Microsoft is we actually go to the field marketing teams and the inside sales teams before we roll it out for a specific geo and product combination. We educate them on what they are and how to see the notes, et cetera. And the response is overwhelmingly positive and kind of hope and optimism. Is how I would characterize it. And then one of the biggest, most valuable things that they've said that they, in addition to getting higher quality leads, was really the context that they get from the bot, in terms of we're able to show them with Conversica the conversation that the buyer and the bot had. And in that conversation, a lot of the times the inside seller sees, oh, wow, I'm going to need a technical sales professional or a TSP on this call because there's going to be some technical questions, because the customer will respond with a lot of detail and a lot of questions. And so instead of having one meeting where they sort of say, okay, well, I need to schedule some time with the TSP, and then they'll meet a week later, they're able to bring the seller is able to bring the TSP in up front, and they're able to answer all of the questions of the customer right then and there. And that really does accelerate the sales cycle. And it reduces drop off, because sometimes the customer might not make the second meeting, or priorities could change. So those are some advantages that we've seen, and that's kind of the attitude. That's how we've rolled out the bots, and those are the kind of responses that we've heard from our inside sales and the benefits that they've seen from them.
So it leads me to my question, and you alluded to this, but would they rather get the high-scored lead that hasn't responded to Kristen, or would they rather get the low-scored lead that Kristen has identified as a hand raiser that's ready to speak to them?
They'd much rather get the low-scored lead that has been identified by Kristen. In fact, some of them even say, can I just get these leads? Don't give me any other ones.
Just the Kristen leads?
Yeah, just the Kristen leads.
Got it. Let's wrap up today's webcast. I want to thank all of you who've been listening in and contributing questions. We really appreciate your participation. Look forward to seeing you on the next in our continuing series about AI and marketing and sales. You've been listening to Charles Eichenbaum, Director of Marketing Technology at Microsoft. Charles, I want to say a big thank you to you for sharing this story with us and the audience. It's really a compelling and interesting story. So thank you for that. Can people get a hold of you if they have additional questions?
Yeah, please feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn if you have any questions. I'd love to talk about this stuff, so happy to chat.